May I please have a motion to return the regular board meeting to public session? Thank you, Dr. Singh. May I have a second, please? Dr. McCleary, thank you very much. All in favor? Thank you. Opposed or abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. I call the regular board meeting to order. All board members are present except for Mrs. Beeger. Vice President Van Sice, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. No.
Please be advised that in the event of a fire emergency, an evacuation should be necessary, an alarm will sound. Please note all marked emergency exits and evacuate well away from the building. This time we request that everyone turn their cell phones and other electronic devices to silent. Before we proceed with our meeting tonight, yesterday our district lost 2 of our students. As a school board, we offer our condolences to the families of Williamsville South seniors, Lauren and Luke. We send our love to their parents, family members, friends, classmates, and our staff. In this time of grief, there is comfort in the support of those who love and care for you. We are one district, one community. Every child belongs to all of us, and we belong to one another. Let us join together and send love and compassion to those grieving tonight as we honor Luke and Lauren in a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Is there a motion, please, to approve the agenda as presented? Thank you. I'm forgetting names. I'm sorry. I'm just emotional tonight. Thank you, Vice President Van Sice and Ms. Kazmarek-Bogner. Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, Dr. Brown Hall, I turn it over to you, please, for board recognition.
Thank you, Board President Leatherborough. So tonight, as many of you entered the boardroom, you were greeted by the music of Mrs. Kiefer's 4th grade strings, which features students from Forest, Maple East, and Maple West. March is Music in Our Schools Month, as well as Women's History Month, and I want to thank them for their incredible performance tonight. Great job. Let's all give them a round of applause. Absolutely loved We Will Rock You, for sure. Also, tonight we continue our school spotlight, highlighting the great work that goes on within our school buildings. This month, our school spotlight focuses on Forest Elementary School and their brand new book vending machine. I'd now like to welcome Principal Keith Wing to share more about how this awesome addition to his building is helping build lifelong learners and readers. Principal Wing.
Thank you, Dr. Brown Hall. Thank you, Board of Education, for allowing us to showcase some of the things going on at Forest Elementary. In partnership with our incredible PTA, we have been able to purchase and supply a book vending machine. And you'll get to see in a moment through a video that Mr. Morales and Mr. Filipowski put together what that looks like. But it's a way where we can acknowledge and recognize and reward students for their effort, behavior, and citizenship, while also promoting literacy at the same time. As educators, you know, sometimes we might struggle with how to recognize kids. Is it a sticker? Is it a piece of candy? But this is the best way we could find to do it, is through a a book, and that's something you get to keep. You get to keep it forever and promote literacy at the same time. So thank you.
Thank you.
We had seen that some other schools had gotten book vending machines across the country, and we thought, what a great idea to acknowledge the hard work and great character that our students show by rewarding them with books. When a student earns a coin, they come up to the machine, they put in the coin, and they can pick any book they want. Every single one of our students is getting a coin for participating in our fundraising. It's just a really great thing to instill a love and passion for learning. And this machine really does that. It displays the books, it really highlights the books, and makes the students want to get the book in their hand and flip through the pages and enjoy the book. And that's what really learning is all about.
That's amazing! This is like my dream!
To have something so unique in our school, especially something that not only can the kids enjoy at school, but it's something they can bring home and that lasts. It's not just something that has that immediate gratification and then it's done. It's something that they can keep and remember where they got it from.
Oh my gosh, you're proud!
I think it's so wonderful that we can reward our students in a way that's actually beneficial to really instill that love of reading and that passion.
I would especially like to thank our Forest families, our Forest students, and specifically our Forest PTA, because they're the ones who have always been so supportive of our students and ideas we have for the betterment of all of our kids. Everything we do here in this entire building is about kids. And so this is one more way we can bring excitement to their day.
Thank you very much, Ring. I absolutely love that. Thank you very much.
Thank
I'll
you.
turn it back over to you, President Leatherborough.
Thank you. Are there any board acknowledgements? Mr. Littman.
Yes, I'd like to take a moment to recognize Coach Ed Greenway. Mr. Greenway is a sixth grade teacher at High Middle, and he taught my children. He's also the Williamsville East High School varsity lacrosse coach for many years. Yeah, I'm used to being down there. But he was honored recently and was awarded the inaugural John Fowler Memorial Award, which is funded by the Buffalo Bandits, our professional lacrosse team. It was given to Coach Greenway for his contributions in to amateur lacrosse by having a positive impact on all student athletes, by treating all opponents and all parts of the game with honor and respect, and inspiring athletes to do their best. As I was adding my own personal commentary, knowing him through the years and his work with our students, he exhibits all of those things. He's respectful, honorable, and inspires our young people like most all of our teachers and waves. So we do a shout out to Coach Greenway.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Littman. Are there any other acknowledgements? Vice President Van Sice.
I would just like to acknowledge all of the high school musicals that are actually moving forward. So South already had theirs. East just had theirs this past weekend, and North will be having theirs this weekend. I'd still like to acknowledge it ahead of time because we won't be meeting again for another month. Just the immense time and tremendous effort that both our staff and students put in, and the incredible talent that we see across all three high schools is just incredible, both with the musical production that we're seeing and also the actors and actresses that we're seeing. It's incredible. So we just thank them for everything that they've provided, the entertainment they've given us. It's outstanding.
Thank you very much. We're moving on to public expression, unless there's any other board acknowledgements. And we only have one individual signed up for public expression tonight, and that is one of our school administrators. So I will not need you to read the public expression statement. And if you'd like to invite our friend up to the board, you're welcome to do so.
Principal Spillage, please.
Hey, how you doing? Actually, I'm here today as the Williamsville Administrative Association president, as well as the Dodge Elementary principal. Dr. Brown Hall, the district negotiation team consists of Dr. McKenna, Dr. Balin, Ms. Cooper, and as well as the Board of Ed. On behalf of the Williams Administrators Association, we thank you for an expedited and fair negotiation process. Negotiations can be very difficult. However, our process was thorough, professional, and transparent. We greatly appreciate everyone's attention and focus in keeping our district moving ahead. We additionally look forward to the work that does lie ahead, which is extremely important. Thank you for everyone's amazing work that has focused on students becoming the absolute best version of themselves. And again, thank you again, Dr. Brown Hall, for getting this done very quickly. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Principal Smiljanic.
Thank you, Principal Smiljanic, and we will be voting on that. All right, we have our consent agenda. May I please have a motion to approve the consent agenda items 6 through 8, please? They include personnel, business items, special needs, and student activities. Thank you, Dr. Littman. Thank you, Ms. Littman. Is there any discussion? I have a question. Are there any other questions from the board? I have a question about summer school. Dr. Brownhouse, since the consent agenda for personnel includes administrators for summer school, and I know we did some of that approval at the February meeting.
Correct. Mhm.
When could parents expect to hear about the summer school offerings and receive information on summer school registration?
Right. A good part and a good portion of the summer school offerings and information will be available in May, but we want to aware and alert everyone that even after April recess, that schools will be having conversations with parents about what summer school will look like and what students may need to attend summer school. And so in May and leading into June, we'll have more information about the programs that are being offered and the opportunities for students to be accelerated in some of the summer programming also.
Okay, thank you. I see follow-up questions. So Ms. Pullen, followed by Dr. Littman.
Do we have the dates on the calendar for summer school so parents who might be wanting to think about that can have that as part of their plan?
The dates aren't on the calendar, but we do have the dates, and we'll be sending out the information on that, the secured dates for summer school. We've done that already, and now that you've approved the elementary and middle school administrators for summer school, you did the high school ones last month, they're able to begin the planning for summer school, but we do have the dates secured. Dr. Balin, Dr. Scanzuzo, they do a lot of work with that, and along with the staffing from Dr. McKenna and the HR department.
Okay, and then one other follow-up question about summer school, and then I have one other comment. So I don't recall there a request for assistant principals in the past for summer school. So could you tell us about the justification for that?
Absolutely. So our summer school programs have grown. And I do know that in the past, there used to be a separate elementary summer school and a separate middle school summer school, and we've combined them. And the job is really a huge job, the magnitude of it. And so having additional support in the form of an assistant principal for summer school, we felt would be necessary this year. I had the pleasure of seeing the summer school programs last year when I first arrived, and I can attest to the magnitude of the programs.
Thank you. Any other questions from the consent agenda?
Yeah, mine's in number 7, a business part of it, a bid. And, you know, it relates to the South High School gym door replacement. You know, as a state employee, we are required to have, you know, multiple bids to work with. And I know that we sent out, there were 4 bid notices sent and was 1 bid received for the doors at South Gym. I guess the question is, you know, I have complete faith in you through the years, but could you just clarify what, you know, why that bid is a reasonable bid to accept versus rebidding it to see if anybody else has a view on it?
Voice calling, Mr. Matursky.
I can see that one of the reasons that you want to accept it is because of the lead times for those doors. So everything with COVID, the lead times are much longer than normal. And that was really why the reason this is a repair reserve item. That is one of the reasons why we upped the repair reserve meeting to January, when normally it actually is in this meeting tonight. So that is one thing. And when we do that type of bid, we also do a cost analysis to make sure it is reasonable.
Yes.
If we're excessive and over our budget, I would not be bringing that forward.
Yeah, that would have been my question. Is it within the range of what we should be expecting? And do we have the resources allocated? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. And Assistant Superintendent Matursky, thank you very much for that answer.
And then one final comment before we vote. I just want to acknowledge to the community that we are receiving a donation from the Buffalo Bills. They're offering a donation to the South Football Program for $1,000. We'll be accepting that in a moment. All right, any other points of discussion on the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, all in favor on consent agenda items 6, 7, and 8? Thank you. Opposed or abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The Board of Education extends best wishes and gratitude to the following retirees for their service to the district. And I want to preface this by saying that the deadline was March 1st, so I have quite a list to read. So I will read through these names and their school that they're affiliated with and their years of service. And I need gotta keep my eyes straight. Okay, so we have Mary Bennett at Mill Middle School for 30 years of service. John Burns at North High School, 29 years of service. Susan Buttenschoen, Heim Elementary School, 37 years of service. Holly Cannon, Casey Middle School, 29 years. Deborah Carlin, Country Parkway, 17 years of service. Jill Dolan, Transit Middle School, 32 years of service. Laura Ferguson, Dodge Elementary, 32 years of service. Diana Grande, Casey Middle School, 33 years of service. Thomas Harsh, East High School, 27 years. Beverly Heinen, Heim Elementary School, 29 years of service. Patricia Johnston, Maple East Elementary, 21 years of service. Andrea Lavere, Mill Middle School, 19 years of service. Rachel Lucas, Transit Middle School, 29 years of service. Maureen McGloin, Heim Elementary, 35 years of service. Catherine Meyer, Maple West, 21 years of service. Patrick Murray, Transit Middle School, 32 years of service. Marie Nagowski, Mill Middle School, 31 years of service. Paul Nagowski, East High School, 28 years of service. Stacy Quinlan, Mill Middle School, 30 years of service. Nancy Reeds, Heim Elementary, 37 years of service. Karen Reichert, Mill Middle School, 32 years of service. Karen Ryan, Mill Middle School, 15 years of service. Samuel Scaduto, Transit Middle School, 29 years of service. Mary Scalzi, Casey Middle School, 29 years of service. Randall Schreiber, Transit Middle School, 30 years of service. Sally Trippy, Heim Elementary School, 33 years of service. Sharon Glass, South High School, 25 years of service. Sharon Hall, Heim Elementary, 28 years of service. Joseph Lang from Facilities, 18 years of service. Betsy Utnick, North High School, 21 years of service. And Nurse Rosa Wordle, High Middle School, 29 years of service. Let's give a congratulations to all. All right, at this time, is there a motion, please, to approve the tenure recommendation as presented? We are being asked to present tenure to Ms. Danielle Sunshine. May I have a motion, please? Thank you, Vice President Van Sice and Board Member Ms. Poland. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed or abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And we want to offer congratulations to Danielle Sunshine from Maple East Elementary on your tenure. And you are welcome to come up and speak at the podium.
Hi, I'm Danielle Sunshine. Nice to meet all of you. Nice to see you again, Dr. Brown Hall. I just want to say thank you very much for this opportunity. And it's been wonderful working in Williamsville. I went to all the Williamsville schools, so I feel like my career has come full circle. So there's no place I'd rather be. So thank you so much.
Very welcome. And we will be having a reception in June for all of those who are approved for tenure throughout the school year. All right, we're moving on to item 10, which is the approval of our minutes. Is there a motion, please, to approve the February 8th board meeting minutes? I think you're going to be our motion girl tonight. Thank you. Thank you, Vice President Van Sice. Is there a second? And Ms. Kazmarek Bogner, thank you. Any corrections or additions to the minutes tonight? Seeing none, all in favor? All hands up equals motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We've reordered our agenda tonight so that we could try and get some more input on the budget. At our last couple budget hearings, we did not have anyone come speak. So during agenda planning, we deliberately reordered the agenda to make sure we move these items up. We're going to take care of a few finance items first, and then we'll have our budget development discussion and our forum. So looking at items 11A, B, C, and D. May I please have a motion to resolve and approve property, in there. The budget transfers in 11A, sorry about that. Property tax settlement 11B. The Erie One BOCES installment purchase agreement for phone equipment in 11C. And the sale and disposal of district property in 11D. Thank you, Ms. Pullen. Is there a second, please? Okay, Dr. Littman, I appreciate that. Is there any discussion on any of these items? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed or abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right. So we will now move on to our budget development presentation. So Superintendent Brown Hall, I turn it over to you and Mr. Matursky.
Absolutely. So I'll ask our Chief Financial Officer, Assistant Superintendent Tom Matursky, to give our Williamsville Central School District 22-23 budget development presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Brown Hall. So today we're going to provide the additional information on where we are in the budget development process. We have a preliminary budget to present tonight, and that means it's completely balanced to what we would require as far as presenting to the community. So to begin with, what I'd like to do is just to show this, the information, which is our program increases. This is the same document that you have seen over the last month in February. There actually have not been any changes to it. So the key items here show an increase of about $7.6 million, a working budget in this situation of $212,623,086, and that represents a 3.71% increase. And as I have mentioned in the past meetings, we show a second look. What would it look like the next year? And these are estimates based upon a lot of the history we have. And again, it just gives you an idea what's forward for the next year, and with some percentage increases being 3.48%. So what's new? What we have adjusted in this budget presentation is adding 2 assistant principals, one for transit middle and one for middle. And so these are 10-month positions. And so their program support, that's what the coding is. And so that would be at $160,000. So again, just showing the small percentage increase, what it would be. That's the dollar amount that would be added to the budget that is different from what you have seen back in February. The next slide that's important here is to show you what our reductions are. And as you know, you accepted some retirements. And so this is showing a retirement or a budget adjustment decrease of $255,000. So when we look at everything together, it results in an adjusted increase of $7,507,119. And that creates a budget that we're presented tonight of $212,528,086. And that's an increase of 3.66%. So on the revenue side, we have to balance our budget. and that is what we have done. Again, the revenues are pretty much the same as what you saw in February. The information that was necessary to balance the budget here is that we were able to increase our sales tax by about $600,000. We also had a slight increase in the Medicaid amounts that we were seeing based upon collections that we've received through this point in the current school year. And then you can see a couple very minor increases down below in the other revenue categories to balance this out. So the key item here, as I mentioned in the past, is that if you look in the state aid piece, that $3,036,162 that we have in the current year budget, which was federal aid, that is no longer necessary in the next year's budget of 22-23 because of the larger increase we get in state aid. So that is a good thing, and you'll see me highlight that as we go to the next slides. So again, just showing you the totals here, $212,528,086. No budget deficit. It's a balanced budget with the revenue side I just also discussed. The tax levy increase, $3,410,000, 2.55% under the tax cap. A budget increase of $7,507,119, 3.66%. And again, not to say this too much, but it's important. We are not relying on federal COVID assistance aid for our general fund budget next year. Every year at this time, we also want to present a look at what the tax rates would be. And so this is looking at it from the perspective of our community. And really, there are three different areas here. There's the tax credit, which really is for more recent home-owned buyers who get it on their income tax return. That would be an increase of $45. If you have Basic Star, that would be an increase of $37.55. And Enhanced would be $26.81. And again, all these are applicable to a home assessed at $150,000 level. Key factors here, just so you understand what went into these calculations, is that it was using last year's assessed values multiplied by what the New York State Department of Finance gave us as a growth factor that was used in our tax cap calculation. The reality is that's last year. We always usually receive more than that. So it's very likely that all of these rates and these increases will go down, not up. And again, we're using the same equalization rates from last year also. So the positives on this budget, no program cuts at all. And actually, we have a support increase. We have no future budget shortfalls at this amount. And what that is representing, again, is that we're not using federal monies anymore to support the general fund budget. We've got very good growth in two major tax revenue areas, the payment in lieu of taxes and sales tax. And we've got the two new support positions. And again, we're under the tax cap. The only negative is it's not necessarily for next year, but it might be for the years to come. And that is, will New York State be able to sustain the high foundation aid increases? So with that, the budget development process that we have is really showing that we're doing the presentation tonight here. We have a budget email out there, budget feedback at Williamsville K-12. And before this meeting, I double checked and we do not have any emails at this point that have not been addressed. Again, revenue continuation and support. If we need to do any adjustments, we will. But at this point, we have a sound, balanced budget. And so the next major meeting would be the budget work session on the 22nd. And then that would follow with the adoption of this budget by the board. And then, of course, the community vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matursky. Does anyone from the board have any questions or comments? I know this is we've gone through this several times. This is the first month, though, that we heard of the proposed additions to the budget. So thank you for sharing that. Yep. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding any of that? I'll start with, how about I start on the end and I'll work my way down. So we'll start with Dr.
Well, yeah, I'm always glad to start off. I'm going to have 2 points. One is I've done through the years is always to thank you and thank everyone for all the work that takes place to put this budget together. But I say the same thing through the years, that the challenging part of all this budgeting is trying to balance the needs of the students with the balanced needs of the taxpayers, and to make sure that we do everything not only with students but the taxpayer in mind. And I think historically we've done pretty well with that. One comment on this slide. My understanding is that says if your house is assessed at 150,000. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And since the most recent houses in my neighborhood have sold for 100,000 over list, I think maybe we should make that a more realistic figure, because to me, 150,000 assessed value isn't really much anymore. So something to think about. But everything else, per usual, is exceptional, and we all appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Lippman. Ms. Pullen?
I just wanted to say I'm glad that our budget allows us to have the enhanced support at Millen Transit. I think that's something that both of those schools have wanted, and so thank you for finding that.
Okay, Ms. Kaczmarek-Bogner, do you have anything to share? Okay, on my right, anything from any of my board members on my right to share on the budget? Any questions or comments? All right, thank you. And I will echo what you said, Ms. Pullen, about the APs at Transit and Middle. I've been on the board for 6 years, and I can say for at least for all of that time, I've heard for requests for transit specifically, but I know that the enrollment at Mill is also very high, and especially when you compare it to High Middle, for example, they're just different size schools, and so to be asked to do the same work with the same number of people, but yet so many more students, we need to make it more equitable. So,
Looking at the administrator to student ratio. Absolutely.
correct. Thank you. That's the right wording. Okay. I appreciate this very much. And thank you, Mr. Matursky, for everything that you shared. So with that, we are going to be recessing into our budget work session, and we'll hold our forum, and then we'll come back and conclude with the remainder of the agenda. So may I please have a motion to recess our regular board meeting so that we may hold a budget work session at this time. Thank you, Dr. Singh and Ms. Kaczmarek-Bogner. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay, motion carries unanimously. So we have recessed, and now we are in our budget work session. So I call the budget work session to order. All board members are present except for Mrs. Beeger. And at this time, the Board of Education welcomes anyone in attendance who wishes to speak about the budget to the podium at this time. If anyone speaks, please give your name and your relationship to the district.
You're right out the door.
I was just wondering, what did I say? Okay. I can't see behind the pillar. Is there anyone there?
Nope.
All right. I was just checking. All right. Thank you very much. I think we're good then. So may I have a motion to adjourn the budget work session and return to the regular board meeting? Thank you, Vice President Van Cise and Board Member Ms. Pullen. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Right.
Thank you. I see no abstentions or no's, so motion carries unanimously. And we are now back at our regular board meeting. All right, so let's go to our president's report. I know our agenda is a little out of order tonight, but we did that on purpose to, be more accommodating to our community. So taking a look at some of our events, we do have a community forum scheduled for March 22nd. It will be after the budget work session. That begins at 7, so the approximate start time of our community forum is going to be 8 p.m. So board members, I need to get your input on the format for that. This has been quite a year, right? With our COVID restrictions different every single month. We really haven't known what to expect from one meeting to the next. So I just need to know if you would like the format to be an in-person community forum, similar to what we did in October, where we can have back and forth conversations. We're able to look each other in the eye and just really have more of a flow to our conversation. Or if you would prefer to have a hybrid format where we do allow people to call in, just note that that changes the style of it, because we can't have back and forth in the same way. It just doesn't work. And we lose some of the humanity because we don't have, not everyone's camera's always on, and it's just a different experience. So it's really up to whatever your preference is as a board. So I'm here to listen to your feedback. Ms. Kazmarek-Bogner.
Yes, although I personally prefer the in-person option for the reasons that you stated, because you can have that eye contact and the back and forth flow. I would prefer the hybrid, mainly because I think we may have greater participation, and especially because it's in the evening, those people with children who may have needs for childcare may be able to come on for online and participate that way. So for those reasons, I would like to see us do hybrid, and not having anything to do with COVID. And I would honestly, when we're able to, when we hold it in the boardroom where we could offer the hybrid, I would like to see us do that going forward. Obviously, when we're in another school, it would be more difficult to do it that way. And we may have to just have in person, but when we're in the boardroom, we have the technology available. It seems we might as well utilize it so that we can be more inclusive of our community.
Thank you very much for your feedback. Does anyone else wish to give feedback? Ms. Pullen?
I would just echo that. I definitely, enjoy the personal back and forth, but just if our goal is really to be as accessible as possible to as many people as possible, taking down some of the barriers that having an in-person event puts up for families, I would like us to have that as an option. If people talk to us by not participating that way, that will help us make those decisions going forward. But I think it's worth a try.
Okay. We appreciate that feedback. Does anyone else from the board wish to give input? Vice President Van Slyce.
I am really for the in-person because we've already done it that way. This past time, I was originally thinking hybrid, but we already held an in-person forum. So then I was thinking we should continue on with in-person. This is my request. I'm open to doing hybrid, but I think we need to follow the same format then, which is not the interaction. So if a participant would like to speak, we would have their names ahead of time. They have to register ahead of time to let us know. So we have the mediators on our side ready to go. They're allowed to answer or ask one question. Their microphone is then turned off. Board members can respond. We move on. So that is the way we've done our hybrid in the past, and we need to have specific guidelines. So if we have that hybrid, for those that aren't in person, we would have to follow, I would suggest we follow the exact same format, which is even asking for cameras on when they speak to us, asking the question, and then we are able to respond, but there's not the back and forth.
Okay. I appreciate that feedback as well. Anyone else from the board wish to weigh in? Want to make sure I get everyone's input that would like to give it.
This is my comment. I agree with what everybody has already stated, but the bottom line goal really should be maximizing participation in a venue that will help people who can come in person, and for people who have, responsibilities and care about those responsibilities and being involved in the district. So it's like anything we're trying to do, open it up so that we do have that participation.
So just so I understand what you're saying, because you said you agreed with everybody, but are you choosing hybrid then or in person? Okay, thank you for that.
And my understanding is
Hybrid with guidelines.
no, but I mean, to me, it's like when we teach. A hybrid means that you have some people here and some people. So both modes would be would be an option for
Yeah,
people.
so we would still definitely invite people to come in person. We will be here. We definitely would invite people from the community to come out and talk to us because I know I appreciate the face-to-face and the
Yes.
interaction. But we would then still include an option for individuals who have other circumstances, which I get it. If you're a parent and your children are at home, most likely you're at home with your children. So I totally respect that. Okay. All right. So it sounds like we have made a decision. Okay. Mr. Biscaglia.
Sorry, it's just popped in my head. My only concern with the hybrid would be, I understand. I mean, I have young kids of my own. Does it deter people from wanting to come in then? Oh, I can just sit at home and ask my question. Just throwing it out there for thinking purposes. That would be my only worry.
Yes.
As an ECBO.
It's interesting, right? Because like you're a social studies teacher and so thinking about civic responsibility.
Yeah, I'm not saying that
Are
would
we
happen, but that would be a concern that just popped in my head.
Right. Okay. And to that point, Ms. Kazmarek-Bogner.
I thought about that too. And actually, if we format it the way Vice President Van Cise says, someone that's interested in having more of correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you were saying is we could have more of a back and forth if people were in person, but the people that choose to be virtual, it would just be ask a question and get a response. So there's some incentive to come in person, yet if someone is unable to come in person, it gives them the choice of having the virtual option. So I think that's my 2 cents on that.
Anybody else? All right, so this doesn't require a vote of the board because we're not using any additional funding or anything like that. If anyone from the board wants this on the record and would like to make a motion, they can. It's not necessary. All right, so we seem good with that. Board retreat, we have a board retreat scheduled for March 30th. Just want to remind everyone of that. We set aside 6 to 8:30, and we have Linda Rouet, one of our instructional specialists, who has agreed to come and facilitate and provide some training on DEI shifts that are happening in the district. And we will have some remaining time left over that we will be able to use to discuss our ideas for the future work of our board. So we can talk a little bit about board goals and board leadership and steps for moving forward. I think that time is going to go pretty quick, that 6 to 8:30 time. Board member Beeger has also offered to do a little get to know you activity because that was one of the requests from a previous board meeting. Just not get to know you. It's not like we don't know each other, but just to continue to build on our relationships. Because relationships are the foundation for all good educational decisions. Okay, so I just want to bring that attention to you. And is there anyone at this point who's unable to share? I know once upon a time we cleared that date with everyone, but are we all able to attend? I guess was what I meant to say.
Wednesday.
March 30th is a Wednesday.
I'm good.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Moving on, we have an after school with staff. Our conversations with the Board of Education is scheduled for Wednesday, April 6th, and then again on Thursday, May 5th. So just be looking ahead to those dates. And I know Mrs. Carey has done a nice job of sending out reminders, trying to see who's available to attend. If you can't get there right at 3, please don't worry about it. If you have to leave early, please don't worry about that. I think it's just a gesture that we're making ourselves available for staff that wish to come and speak with us. All right, past events. There are some past events that are listed in board docs. Does anyone wish to share about one of the past events included on the agenda? There were a few different things that have taken place recently, a Harris Beach seminar, and an in-service that was done through the University of Buffalo on critical race theory. Okay, board member, or I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought tonight. What's your name, lady? Vice President Van Cise.
So I know that we listed the people that attended the general education session for Harris Beach. I attended the special education section. I think I was the only one that attended the special education. We did receive full PowerPoint presentations and notes on it. I didn't share that out if you don't, because I didn't want to bombard everyone. But if you are interested, I'm willing to share the presentation and the notes for the special education presentation from Harris Beach.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that. Can you attach that through email? That
Absolutely.
would be great. Thank you so much.
We can do the same with the general ed.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. We do have school visits this week on Thursday, March 10th. We are visiting Heim Elementary and Heim Middle School. Currently registered to attend is myself, Miss Poulin for Heim Elementary, Miss Kazmarek Bogner, and Dr. Littman. And I believe Miss Beeger said she was coming to Heim Elementary, but I don't want to speak for her. Is there any changes to this? Okay, thank you. Going on to the Erie County Association of School Boards, we do have a prospective school board member workshop, which is listed in board docs. That information has been shared out at a previous board meeting. If you are interested in attending, you can register through our district clerk or through Ms. Summers at ECASB. Does anyone have anything else to share from Erie County Association of School Boards? Okay, thank you. Moving on to New York State School Board Association. We did have a lobby day recently, and Dr. McCleary and myself met with staff from Senator Rath's office and Assemblywoman McMahon's office. This took place over Zoom, and we were able to share our legislative issues that impact our students and our district finances. I want to thank Superintendent Brown Hall and Mr. Matursky for providing us with that information, so we had specific talking points. I just want to share when I was speaking to both of their staff members about the difference in using the census data from 2000 to now. I was able to pull up our school district data just related to our number of English language learners.
Mhm.
That is the talking point, just to show what a difference we have right now as a community. And then I spoke a little bit about our difference in our students who receive free and reduced lunch, and also the difficulty to track that information now that we're offering free lunches.
Correct.
So, of course, it's a good thing to be able to offer all of our students a meal. It hurts us financially when we're not able to track that data and then submit it for reimbursement. So I just wanted to share with the board that all of that was shared. And I know with the aides for both offices, they were very interested in those numbers specifically, not realizing how much our community has changed. And one of the aides was like, "Why are we using 2000 data?" And it's like, good question. Let's fix that. So I think it was good to have specific examples of, like, we're always taught to have an ask for advocacy, but then when you have a specific example of how this impacts you and you tell a story that creates a little aha moment for someone, it becomes more real. And I could see, like, once I did that, they were sort of taking it a little more seriously. And I want to thank you, Superintendent Brownhall, because I know you also met with both offices.
Visually correct.
And shared. We had similar messaging, so consistency.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you for that, and thank you very much, Dr. McCleary, for joining me on that. Did you want to add to that? Absolutely.
Just real quick, I think it was very productive, and yes, there were the aides rather than the two, the senator and the assemblywoman, but they had other things. I will say, I thought they took a lot of notes and really were quite interested and did ask a number of detailed questions. So it was very worthwhile, and I hope that we continue keeping in contact with our representatives.
I agree, and I think it was really great that there were two of us from Williamsville during those advocacy sessions. So thank you for attending with me.
Dr. Littman has a question.
Okay, Dr. Littman.
You brought up some idea that always is of interest to me, which is school nutrition and school lunch programs. I know this year it's been federally funded and all of our students have the ability to have a free lunch. But do we know going forward into the next calendar or next academic year, what the status is on.
Do we know if that federal program has been extended? Is that the question?
Yeah, is that going?
It's my understanding.
I don't remember.
It's my understanding that it has. I'll ask Assistant Superintendent Matursky if he's heard anything different.
I'm not sure it has at this point, Dr. Brownhall. I can verify that, but I think it's been talked about.
Yeah.
I'm not sure there's been an actual action.
Action on it? Okay.
I will follow up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a good question. The school board's role and curriculum adoption webinar took place on February 10th. In attendance were Ms. Bogner, Ms. Poulin, Vice President Van Slyce, and Dr. Singh. Does anyone from the board wish to speak on that event? Thank you for the reports that were submitted. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to briefly state that one of the things that they talked about were the state learning standards and how state learning standards are developed with stakeholder involvement, which includes parents, and that these are the standards that must be incorporated into the district curriculum. And then here at the district level, we have a curriculum council, which Dr. Balin chairs, and does consist of principals, teachers, parents from all levels, as well as high school students. And they review the curriculum improvement proposals that are developed by teachers in partnership with the instructional specialists. And then the proposals are discussed and voted on in the council, are reviewed by the superintendent, and then brought to the board for approval each December. So we do have a very wonderful process already in place here in the district in terms of how we do the curriculum review. So I just wanted to bring that forward. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that. Does anyone have anything else to report under New York State School Board Association? All right, thank you. We're going to move on to items D and E, and I'm going to ask our district clerk, Lynn Carey, to share information on board candidate packets and our annual vote.
Thank you, President Leatherbarrow. Just real brief, candidate packets have been available on our website and also in board docs. I do like to meet briefly with potential candidates to just go over any questions they may have. There's, as President Leatherbarrow mentioned, a prospective board member workshop through Erie County Association of School Boards on March 26th. And absentee ballot application information is also in board docs and on our website. And the annual vote is May 17th, and it's at North High School in the gymnasium from 7 till 9 p.m.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And F. This is our call for nominations for Erie One BOCES. At the annual Erie One BOCES meeting, they will be reviewing the nominations for the April elections for 3 board member seats, which carry a 3-year term. Section 1950, Subdivision 2 of the New York State Education Law provides that nominations of candidates shall be made by board resolution by component districts at least 30 days before the date designated for voting. Unlike the actual vote, there are no limitations to how many people can be nominated from each member's district or how many of those candidates come from within a given school district. However, when it comes to the decision, only one individual can be voted on to the Board of Education from any given school district. Candidates should be qualified to serve on the Board of Education from within the district that they live. Presently, we have 4 candidates, 2 candidates who are seeking re-election, and 2 from the Williamsville School District that have come forward within the last month requesting the board nominate them. We have been provided with their letters for review, and I believe all of their information is in board docs. So at this time, I ask my fellow board mates, would someone like to make a motion to nominate a candidate for the Erie One BOCES board? If so, please do so now. Right, Vice President Van Slyce.
I would like to nominate Eric Borenstein, located in the Williamsville Central School District, as a candidate for the election to be held on April 19th, 2022, to serve as a trustee for the Board of Cooperative Educational Services, First Supervisory District of Erie County, in a term beginning July 1st, 2022 through July 30th, 2025.
Thank you. So Eric Borenstein has been nominated. Is there a second, please?
A second.
Oh, okay. Ms. Pullen, thank you. All right. And just so I understand the process, District Clerk, we vote on each one individually, correct? Okay, thank you. So is there any discussion on this nominee? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed or abstentions? Eric Borenstein was nominated and that motion carried unanimously. Are there any other nominees at this time? Dr. McCleary.
Thank you. I would like to nominate Mark Mecca, located in the Williamsville Central School District, as a candidate for the election to be held on April 19th, 2022, to serve as a trustee for the Board of Cooperative Educational Services, First Supervisory District of Erie County, in a term beginning July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025.
Thank you. So Dr. McCleary has nominated Mark Mecca. Is there a second, please? Dr. Littman, thank you. Is there any discussion on this nominee? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed or abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Are there any other nominees at this time? All right, seeing none, the call for nominations closes. We will now move on to item G. Erie One BOCES will present its tentative administrative capital and program budgets for 2022-2023 to the members of the boards of education of the 19 component school districts for their review. All 19 component school districts are required to vote on the Erie One BOCES budget and the Erie One BOCES board candidates on the third Tuesday in April, which is April 19th. We will be revisiting this information in April. All right, we are now on item 14, and Superintendent Brownhall, I'm going to turn it over to you for your community update, sir.
Thank you very much, President Leatherborough. Again, this month, we do have a little bit of a longer community update, but all important information for our board and our community. So first, the mask mandate. As you all know, Governor Hochul issued a reversal or a lifting of the mask mandate effective March 2nd. And the masking is now optional in all of our school and district buildings. And individuals that choose to wear a mask may do so. And we are supportive of every decision made by students or families in our district. However, there is a piece that's very important. In accordance with New York State guidance, if we have an individual that tests positive for COVID-19 and returns to school under the reduced isolation guidelines, so they've been at home isolated for 5 days, total of 5 days. When they return to school on day 6, they must wear a mask on days 6 to 10. So that is what Dr. Bassett and the governor sent out on March 1st, and we have to adhere to that. So anyone who tests positive, once they return to school on day 6, they must wear a mask.
Can I ask a question about that? So this is the guidance that comes from New York State, but my question as a former school teacher is who is responsible for tracking that?
Well, our schools still get the information from the parents, and we still track it. You'll see later, we're still responsible also for reporting positive cases, and we're still responsible for notifying parents when there is a case in the classroom.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, this looks a little squished on here and the bottom is cut off. However, additional New York State Department of Health guidance for exposure and notification. So any individual who's in the same room or school setting, i.e. the bus or classroom, as a COVID-19 positive individual is considered exposed and will be notified. So there was a definition of exposed and potentially exposed. We expanded the potentially exposed to include the entire classroom because now that we're in a mask optional environment, the physical distancing requirement is actually a greater distance of when we must notify. So if we have a positive individual in the bus or the classroom, everyone will be considered exposed and we will be notifying. So regardless of vaccination status, the New York State Department of Health school guidance states individuals who are exposed to a COVID-19 positive individual are not automatically excluded from school and should wear a mask and test as recommended. So that's a strong should and as recommended. So notification of exposure will now be communicated through WIX and sent directly to parents, guardians, and staff members who are impacted. So that's how we're utilizing our WIX system also. Families that are impacted students, they will receive a WIX mail.
Are you referring to the home test or the RT-PCR test?
That's a good question.
Test as required, recommended.
On the second bullet?
Yeah.
Right. And that test is recommended. I'm going to get to that because we speak about the home test that we're sending, and those are acceptable. And we're going to talk about how families can actually get them and keep them at home. So we're going to be doing another distribution of 2 test kits, and we encourage families to have them on hand at home. With that, our district is no longer offering a test to stay program because students are not automatically excluded if they are exposed now. So if an individual is exposed, and I know I apologize for reading from the screen, but I want to make sure I get each and every piece correct. It's so important. If an individual is exposed to a positive COVID-19 individual, a COVID-19 at-home test kit will be provided to families and or staff members upon request through WIX. So there will be a feature in WIX once you are notified of a classroom exposure. If you need additional test kits sent home, you'll be able to notify us through WIX and we'll send them home with the student. And remember, each test kit contains 2 COVID-19 at-home tests. I do want to say I'm very thankful to the governor and Erie County for supplying the tests for the Test to Stay program. The governor, we get constant shipments of at-home test kits. We have a considerable amount, and the county has also provided KN95 masks that we've distributed to the school buildings so that if families would like their child to have one or our staff members, we can definitely provide them at the school building. At-home test kit distribution. So we've distributed more than 12,000 at-home test kits prior to the midwinter recess. We're going to finalize another test kit distribution. A WIX survey, it was very successful the last time we did it. We'll be doing that again. A WIX survey will be available from March 14th to the 18th to request test kits be sent home in backpacks. So again, if you already have a test kit at home that you haven't used, we encourage you to please request another and we will send that home just so you have them at home and available. So if your child is symptomatic, you're able to do a test quickly. You don't have to wait for another one to be sent home. Volunteering. So this was a question that was asked at the PTSA council meeting. We've received several emails about it also, and we are going to be changing our volunteering requirements. So due to the low rate of transmission in our region, we will no longer be requiring no longer restricting non-essential visitors to our buildings. However, we ask that you not volunteer or participate in events if you are experiencing signs and or symptoms of COVID, regardless of your vaccination status. If you are symptomatic, we ask that you not participate in any events or volunteer, or if you've tested positive for COVID-19 within the past 10 days, or if you have a known exposure to a positive case, regardless of vaccination status within the past 14 days. When do school visits occur? When you're invited by the principal or teacher for a specific purpose, like volunteering in a classroom for an event, being a guest reader, or providing support as a cafeteria monitor. If there's an evening or school day celebration, such as an art show or a PTA sponsored event. So in the past, we restricted it to only essential volunteers, and we use that for the classroom or at dismissal. But now we are expanding that for non-essential volunteering, and we no longer have the restriction of the volunteers being vaccinated. So that restriction is lifted also. And this is effective tomorrow, March 9th. And if you have any questions, you can contact your building principals, and building principals are able to send out communication in their weekly updates to their families too. Board of Education elections, I won't go over this. I know President Leatherbarrow and our district clerk, Lynn Carey, they have gone over this, but we'll include it in this presentation. It will be housed in board docs. So if anyone has any questions, they can refer to this about the Board of Education elections. And where to find that information on our website. Community forum. Board members had a discussion about this. We know it's March 22nd, following the special board meeting and budget work session. Individuals can attend the community forum in person. That was prior, so I know you will make a final decision of that, and we will.
And that statement's still true. They can attend in person.
They can attend in person. Perfect. Information was Wix mailed to families and staff and is available on the district website.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Saber's pork chicks. Now this was, I thought this was so cute. High middle school sixth graders created pork chicks of their favorite players and staff and featured by the Sabers on Kids Day. All pork chicks are linked on the district's website. Look at the Jeff Skinner one. It's so like identical, right?
Yeah.
Casey Middlestat. Okay, so this was very exciting. Kyle is up there. Yes.
I like Greg.
So the virtual art show. The virtual art show will be launched tomorrow. We have more than 300 student pieces included in the digital exhibit, and information on how to view the virtual art show will be shared with families through Wix and will be available on the district website. So it will be launched tomorrow.
Superintendent Brownhall,
Yes.
regarding the art show, we know that we've had to go virtual the past couple of years due to COVID. Is there plans to bring it back? It's always in the past been a really wonderful event held at the Buffalo Heritage Museum.
Right.
Is that something that we're looking to resume?
So I'm so glad you asked that question, President Leatherbarrow, because what we want to understand with COVID is that there might be opportunities where hybrid is beneficial, right? So the virtual art show allows family members that reside all over the United States to actually view the virtual art show. So looking into the future, we want to look at hybrid, so we have it available virtually and also have it in person. So that's something we can work towards for next year. How about that?
Sounds awesome.
The Williamsville Education Foundation, the Wall of Fame nominations are being accepted. Nominations are due by April 15th. The nomination applications are available on the district website and at wedf.org. They're offering $500 scholarships to one senior at each high school. Applications information are available on the district website and on the wedf.org. So we have the Wall of Fame nominations and the scholarship information available. And that's the community update. Thank you very much, President Leatherbarrow and board members.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
I guess my last question would be the scholarships provided from the Education Foundation.
Yes.
Can we ensure that that information is linked to Naviance so that
Okay,
our
because I know a
students
lot
at
of
high
students.
schools, that's
You're
the
right.
portal they use to access their scholarships. Really just as simple as linking it.
Yeah, and the only other comment I have about that particular is that isn't that date within spring break that their applications are due?
I don't have spring break.
It
Is it during spring break?
but it, that's a deadline, and they have been advertising that for a number of months.
Right.
Right.
Is good.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? All right, we're moving on to the student calendar. Item 14B. Either last month, we reviewed it in a draft form. Is there a motion to resolve to adopt and approve the 2022-2023 student calendar as presented? Thank you, Dr. Littman. Is there a second, please? Thank you, Dr. Singh. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed or abstentions? Was it opposed?
Yep.
Okay, so we have, and any abstentions? No, right? So we have motion carries with one opposed. That would be 7-1-0. Right, liaison reports. If you have any liaison reports, please send them to Mrs. Carey. The list of meeting dates are in board docs. There is a chart in there, so you can check to make sure that it's up to date and accurate. It's a record of when we attend a meeting and also when we submit a report. If you need any coverage, please let your fellow board member know. Does anyone wish to speak about anything that's occurred at a recent liaison assignment? Okay, thank you. I do not see any legislative matters unless anyone wishes to share one. All right, and now we are moving on to our student achievement outcomes presentation. With Dr. Brown Hall, I turn it over to you and Dr. Balin.
Thank you very much. So we know that one of the most important roles that our leadership team, our administrators, our teachers, and our Board of Education has is increasing the student outcomes in our district. So this presentation and report is very, very important. And I want to thank Dr. Balin for the amount of work and energy she put into this. It's very detailed, and I'm looking forward to the board to see the report. So Dr. Balin, if you would, please.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Brown Hall. As Dr. Brown Hall said, this is a very important presentation to all of us. We have this year included many links for parents. So you'll notice throughout the presentation, in addition to the information on the slides, I would draw attention to the various links that are there as well. There's a whole host of information. It can get pretty lengthy when we start to include things like graduation requirements, how to obtain an advanced diploma, but it's all important. And we figured if we put the links in the presentation, it would be much easier for our parents to just click on the link and get some information that way. So if we could please bring up the slides. Thank you, Ms. Radis. It's going to be working, so if I could ask you to forward for me, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
You can switch clickers.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brown. So we wanted to first start off, and really this is a continued conversation as this is an annual presentation that's made, but we wanted to start off by establishing a number of principles when we're looking at assessments and data. And for us, really, it's been most important that we know that multiple sources and looking at information that's both quantitative and qualitative is very important when we're looking at student performance and growth and achievement. We also see assessment not as an event, but rather a process. So when we talk, and we talk at many intervals, this just being one large milestone along the way, we do want to keep in mind that assessment really is ongoing. And really the purpose of it is to gain as much information as we can to best meet the needs of our students. So what we do throughout is really looking for checks for understanding that are aligned to the targets and standards. The standards were mentioned earlier this evening, and certainly baselines. That's a word that we've also used quite a bit. And what that does for us is help us to set targets, meaningful targets for students, and really target our instruction towards meeting those goals for every one of our learners, each and every one of our students. Student learning, then we know, is also increased tremendously through giving meaningful feedback. And later in the presentation, and we included some information on terminology because we know in our education world there's a lot of it. So things like diagnostic and formative assessments are included in the presentation, and we've also included what that means and how we use them in the classroom. What you'll notice too is we do use, of course, summative assessments, and they do serve a role, and certainly you'll see some of the state information that we've included here, but there is a lesser focus on summative assessments because by the time you've gotten to a summative assessments, the learning cycle for that school year has come to a close. So what we do is also use that, and as a jumpstart to the following year, see what we can gain, and we use every piece of information at our disposal, again, quantitative and qualitative, as much as we can to advance student learning. So tonight you'll hear about several types of data, the outcomes information, and also a context for each. And what we are also keeping in mind, of course, is what we can do to do anything in our power to maximize student achievement and learning in our district. I must not be having great luck here, but let's see. There we go. Okay. So beginning first with the 3 through 8 assessments for New York State, I just provided on the screen a frame from the New York State Department of Education with these statements directly taken from their website. In this section,
It is called The Utility and Limitations of This Year's Data, and I'll talk to you a little bit about why that is the case. But in a recent press release, Commissioner Betty Rosa stated that this past year, just 4 in 10 students took the test, so the data does not reflect the majority of student learning. She also commented that they are just one of multiple measures of student learning, helping to shape individual learning plans so that students have the supports that they need. And of course, as we just heard, this really reinforces our principles of multiple measures, classroom and student level focus, and support that advances student learning and their outcomes. For all of our information, and just to refresh our memory, we know that the testing and assessment landscape has been varied and certainly has been impacted tremendously by COVID-19. This past year, there were many influences on the testing, many of which are listed on the screen, but as a result of our students' school models, for one, we also have in place, of course, the parental right for our parents to determine if they wish for their children to take part in the assessment program as another. And something that was unique during our COVID time is students in remote settings who were exempted from our testing in New York State, period, through 3 through 8, unless parents opted to have their children participate. And in this case, they had to come into the school building to do so. There were no tests given in the home setting. So just to provide a bit of a context there. So as a result, the state contrasted that this past year, 40% of the students approximately were tested statewide, and this is compared to in usual years of more than 80% in a typical year, according to the department. As a result, the state itself did not release any statewide data of testing. So if you were to go on to a number of the links in here, it will take you right to the data.gov site. You will not see any state level performance information for state ed. You will only see, in this case, district and school data, and they do qualify that data by saying that this may not be representative of the school district's population, and it's really primarily for the reasons on the screen. So just to forward to looking at what our particular assessment participation looked like here in the district, we've provided 2 charts for you, one on ELA and one on math. And we looked at both our WCSD as well as New York State participation numbers. These are the only New York State numbers we have because outcome information was not available. So on average, the percentage of students tested across the district was 50% in grades 3 through 8, ELA, and 47% in math. If you were to average those together, the highest being grade 3 ELA. You may recall, and I did not put this on the chart, but for science last year, no performance test was given. And as a result, we only had about a 34% participation rate between grades 4 and 8 science. So our lowest, as you can see, was in grade 8 math and grade 8 ELA with 18% and 30% respectively. As you may recall, we do not double test our students in grade 8. Students in these grade levels who are in advanced courses, namely English 9 or Algebra 1, for example, do not also take the grade 8 ELA and math tests. So that has been historical for quite some time, but that is the reason why those participation rates are also impacted. So you may wonder, just as a point of context, how many students were in grade 8 last year? Over 900. So that just gives you a bit of information to draw upon. So on the next slide, we thought it important, and again, if you were to log right on to nysed.gov, you would see this information portrayed a bit differently, but on here you'll see all of the levels of proficiency. Again, while they weren't available for the state, we did just want to include them in the presentation here and have them as a reference point. Again, anyone is welcome to go on the site. You can actually build various reports and even look back to previous years. But as a point of reference, from level 2 forward, that's really the levels you're aiming for. Level 2 being partially proficient, so you're on the road to getting there. Level 3 proficient, and level 4 is more proficient. So those are state level proficiency levels. They are used, and you may have heard things such as ESSA, that is one of the large measures of district performance relative to state goals. The state has had to revisit a lot of this information, this only being one small piece, but a significant piece, because they had actually applied for a waiver from the federal government and did not obtain it. So they are doing a lot of work to redefine a lot of the measures, and this is just one piece of that.
Can I say one thing, Dr.
Sure,
Valen? Because
yeah.
I just want to make sure,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of people will want to go back and look and do comparative.
Mm-hmm.
for previous years. And I want to reference the third slide again,
Yes.
where it said this is not representative of the state student population and should not be compared to that of previous school years. All right. So it's important that we stress that. I know people have a habit of doing that, but it's important that you don't do that with this data and previous data.
And thank you so much for reinforcing that, because that is a point, and I will be repeating that throughout, because that is one of the things, and it's really a natural reaction when you see numbers, is you want to go back and say, well, how does this look compared to last year or 2 years ago? And, you know, did we grow, or how do we stand? And you really cannot do that with these data. And that's been a challenge really throughout the assessment system when you have changing conditions. And we try to list a lot of those on the screen for all of our community to see. You are really looking at conditions that change the nature of being able to make valid comparisons. Couple that with the additional nuances and challenges that COVID-19 presented, and the models and the remote component, the comparisons cannot be made. And the state education department does say that on their website. So we do want to reinforce that as part of our message here. But we did want to include it because it is something that's publicly available, and thought it would be very helpful, so that when we're looking all in one place for what did the past year look like, we had that here for our community and our families to reference. So,
Dr. Balin,
Mhm.
to that point, can I just ask a question? Because I know, like in previous years, when we look at what is the value, what can we learn from this? A lot of what we could learn in the education world was when we did the standards-based analysis, and we were able to say, you know, how did our students do on this particular learning standard? What particular learning standard did I, as a teacher, teach well, or what could I go back and review? Was that kind of analysis able to be done with this, or not so much?
well, I will have to share, I cannot say that it's able to be done that deeply from these
Right.
data. One of the primary reasons is the test constructs themselves were significantly altered as a result of the state's waiver for assessment being declined. They had to move to putting in tests in a rather short duration. And that was actually one of the reasons they applied for the second waiver, saying that the challenge was there, and ultimately they felt that the data would not be representative. So unfortunately, when you're moving from 2 books to 1 book, shortening tests, changing the format, and in the case of math and some of the ELA, some of the test items had been previously tested and released. You have unfortunately compromised the both reliability and validity of the assessment. So we always try, and again, I can't stress enough, anything we've received, we really do try to make the most out of any piece of information, but doing anything to the extent we did prior, it will not be as extensive as we were able to. Now, I will share with you, and all of us know, we also have historically had students not participate in exams, so we cannot rely upon and should not rely upon. We know it's not best practice to rely upon one source of information. So I can't stress enough that we try to use whatever we have at our disposal, but not participating or having limited information should not hinder us from having a comprehensive program for students. So we have to use other sources, which are also included in the presentation as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Balin, I just have one question. Eighth grade students who are in advanced courses, can you give us a rough idea of what percentage of our eighth grade students that applies to?
It's anywhere between 30 and 50%.
Okay.
Then that, if you look at the results, that would skew the results somewhat.
Correct.
Right.
Yes, yes, it
Just
would.
if you look at this out of that context, it doesn't look as promising, but if you factor all of their grades.
Yeah, and you'll note,
looking
not to
more
make
about
comparisons, but in past years, when you look at eighth grade, it always seems to stand out in that manner, and it is because we're not testing all of our students. If we tested all of our students, these numbers would look dramatically different. Plus, you also have students whose families, if they are in the eighth grade math program, do not test. So this is influenced by a number of factors, including the one that Dr. Lippman mentioned. So moving on to the regents, you can see here we listed again for the period of time over the last few years, our regents exams, several of which the cycles have been canceled in their entirety, except for the one that's asterisk for June of 2021. Particularly during that year, 4 of the 10 regents exams were administered. I'll qualify that in a moment because even with that came a few conditions and nuances. But of the ones that were given, we had Algebra 1, Earth Science, English, and Living Environment. The ones that were canceled were Algebra 2, Geometry, Global History, Chemistry, Physics, and U.S. History. So there were quite a few that did not occur. Of the ones that were given in June of 2021, in this case, and again, we do not know moving forward to this June because the state education department has not released the conditions or really the entirety other than an exam schedule, which we do not know if that's going to go forward or not. They've promised more information and we are yet to receive that. But in June of 2021, parents were able to elect for their students to either participate or not in the Regents program. However, what's important to note here is it was under a set of conditions. So the state education department did offer exemptions, as they called it, for students in certain aspects. And what those included is that the students were enrolled in the course of study that commenced in the Regents exam, but they were on the road to earning the course credit. So students who were not passing had to sit for the exam. So again, you're already starting with not a full population. And again, from the students who were earning the credit, parents could elect to have their children not take the exam. And in this case, an exemption would be given. A third condition was also at play, is that for test takers taking the exam, if parents and students determined within a given set period of time that they did not want to take the score that was given, they could also take an exemption. So there were a lot of nuances, and I hope I'm helping to paint a picture for our community. There were lots of twists and turns on a very windy road when it came to assessments. And over the last couple of years, it was really not a standardized way of doing things. But we want to make sure we're upfront and very transparent about what the landscape looked like. So again, we are still waiting to hear what June will look like. And as you are aware, this past January was also canceled. So we will be looking forward to hearing what June and also August will look like.
Have they shared a date of when they're going to notify?
I wish they had. We are continually asking. They probably know me on a first name basis right now. So June 10th is a good possibility. So last year it was around the first week of March. I mean, it's varied. It's been anywhere from March through May, and it's unfortunate we really don't have an exact date. I know Dr. Brown Hall has also inquired. He's been in superintendent's conversations. Dr. McGinley's been at State Ed. He has asked. I'm not certain the decision-making involved, but for all of our benefit, namely our students, it would be most helpful the earlier that we know, the better. As you know, it has a lot of impacts. It impacts not just the testing, but our schedule for the last weeks of school. So we will certainly let you know as soon as we hear anything. We will inform the board of that. So this past June, we also wanted to show you of the total number of students in the 4 areas that were tested, how many students were in the course and how many students in both number and percentage were tested. So that is all on that screen for you. We also wanted to include for you from 2021, this year, what did our passing and our mastery rates look like for all regions, as well as just the mastery rate. And you'll note that mastery is indicated by an 85 or higher in this case. And we also wanted to show you a 4-year window. And as you can see, 2020 was canceled. So that's also indicated on the screen. So for 2021, a 93% passing and mastery rate for all regions and a 72% mastery, which is subsumed within the 93%. On this screen, you'll see a 3-year history of the graduation rates. So you've seen this chart before. So we try to keep with that format, and it includes Regents diplomas, which are in the bold percent, and also in the parentheses, the advanced designation. This is one of the notes we wanted to make sure our parents knew about, and you'll notice the 2 links at the bottom of the screen. When the second one is clicked, that takes anyone who clicks on the link to the Commissioner's Regulations 100.5. Those outline the courses, pathways, and exams that are used to earn or qualify for an advanced diploma. There's a lot of text there, so we did not want to put all of that on the screen, but it's a quick click away, and I think is very helpful information for our parents to know about. And in this case, we further broke the graduation rates down for 2021. In this case, it's by subgroup. And what you'll notice, again, if you go on the data NYSED.gov site, they break it down a few different ways. So just a cautionary tale if you go on there, because it can get pretty confusing. They have a school report card version, and they also have another version, which is by subgroup. And then they have yet another version that's by cohort. So there's a lot of different numbers going around. So depending on where you look and what report you're looking at, there are some variations. But in the case of the cohort grad rates, which was the prior slide, those are for students who entered grade 9 4 years prior to the reporting year. So starting in 2017. However, if you look at the accountability graduation rates, and in some cases those vary, some are higher and some are lower, those are from the 2016 cohort, and that accountability graduation rate is always behind a year. So we qualified that because we also wanted to make sure that when numbers are cited, people can see different things. And then you say, well, why does it look this way in one place and not another? It's because they're using different cohorts. So depending on what you look at, that's what you will see. So again, these data are used by the state education department to determine a district's accountability status, which for everybody's reference, the state education department kept everybody's designation the same from last year to this year, and we remain in good standing. We also wanted to include for you, because again, as you may recall, and this started many years ago, I was having a conversation with Dr. Brownhall. He's very familiar as a former AP coordinator, coming to us now as superintendent. One of the things that, and I go back even 11 years ago when I first arrived, there was a lot of fear and emphasis put on scores. And not necessarily always encouraging students to take advanced courses. So if you look back at presentations from years and years ago, we had far fewer students engaging in that kind of coursework. And I want to really give kudos and a lot of accolades to all of you for supporting the many courses we've added over the years, and also our students and families, because there is a great deal of risk-taking involved when you're putting yourself out there. People may think that the advanced courses are only for an elite few, and that really is not the case. We offer a lot of support for students. So our goal is really to increase the number of students taking the exams. It is not always the case that they will take the credit with them or ask for it on a college level, because we offer so much. We have dual enrollment and so much else that isn't on this slide, but we still want to keep this as an option for families and for students, and they've really taken advantage of it. So we will continue to do so. We want to keep adding to this. We'd like to actually at some point, you may remember the AP Capstone program was something we introduced some years ago. We don't always have the enrollment to run it, but that is something moving ahead as we're looking forward. A goal that we want to set for ourselves is maybe trying to get more students involved in that aspect as well. So just the last part of the presentation, and again, I won't read all of the content of the slides, but really the most important part, and really what President Leatherbarrow was speaking to earlier, is really at the heart of what we do with anything that we gain as a result of our sources and structures. And one of the biggest sources of information we have as far as student learning comes from our local sources. And I've mentioned before, and really will reiterate again, the systems are based on cycles. It's a model of teaching and learning that's based on gathering information and then being responsive to what we're gathering. This is both qualitative and quantitative, and we actually look at it as a system of assessments. And again, when we're using the words assessments, we're talking about conversations, we're talking about using manipulatives, we're talking about explaining one's thinking, we're talking about diagnostic information, we're talking about providing feedback, and certainly, and most importantly, we're talking about responding to student needs, and that is really the most important. But this really is used so that teachers gather the information, look at the strengths, look at the areas of concern or growth, monitor the progress, and personalize the learning for students. So I did want to draw attention to a couple of things for you. And first and foremost, just this is more of a helpful tool for those who are going to look at the presentation, hopefully after it's posted. But these are some of the terms that we use in our education settings: diagnostic, formative, / interim, and summative. And we just wanted to list out some of the components of what those mean and how those terms are used. But as you can see, really, for us, and what we're looking at is using a system that includes all of these. But as far as teaching and learning, really looking at diagnostic information to tell us what skills a student has and has yet to learn, what information we can have at our disposal to provide targeted instruction to best meet needs, and then setting individual learning goals and targets for students that are meaningful and attainable, and not holding up any one assessment or particular nuance piece as the be all and end all of the picture, because there's so much that goes into it. And it's occurring ongoing, it's occurring in a variety of ways. And it's really a lot different than in the past, because a lot of the measures we've often heard about or seen or talked about, just as not even just our school community, but in general, are always summative in nature. And a lot of people like to term that as more autopsy data. I don't really love that term, but the idea behind it is that you have it after the fact. It's all important. And again, we use it all. So we've talked about the summative measures. So I just want to share quickly some of the other types of measures. So we've talked about FastBridge, and this is one of our universal screeners. It's used at the elementary level. This is, again, just a couple of bullet points of information. They're very short tests in duration, purposefully so, because, again, we don't want to spend a majority of the time we're in school teaching and testing students. We want the teaching to take place. These are reading measures that are used in grades K through 4, but they're also measures for kindergarten. There are 25 total subtests and 7 unique tests. I mentioned in that bullet some of the items that are tested, which include the letter names, letter sounds, nonsense words, which are not real words, but they're used for phonetic and phonological reasons, sight words, sentence reading, and reading measures. And I'm happy to report, and this was something I can't believe a year has passed, but last year I spoke to you about some of our K1 measures, and really the ones that were more based in phonics, and they have improved, and actually somewhat significantly in some cases, and I'm very happy about that. But we still have some work to do, and we're going to keep those as areas of focus. One of the things we of course know is our incoming kindergartners, there was a great variability, and in some cases non-exposure to any setting of any kind that was daycare, school, or otherwise. So there was a fair amount of work to do with students who had not experienced any type of environment other than being at home. And that's something that's very different, not so much for COVID, but was increased significantly due to COVID because a lot of places were closed, so they could not go to preschool. So, but we are working very closely with each building. So that's the piece I really want to emphasize, is that while I speak to you more in a global fashion, a lot of what we do is really drilling down from there. It's building by building, it's classroom by classroom, then it's also student by student. So really, the most important part is when you get into the classroom level. Really, that's essentially what we're aiming for. I also wanted to share across all of the subtests, and we looked at every single one. The baselines for this year's were stronger across every one of them. So that is a huge, huge accomplishment. Again, it doesn't mean that there is no work to be done, because we are still aiming for, and again, you may remember the RTI model that we have in place, where we're always looking to meet students' needs. So any students who appear on the screener to have an element where they may be at risk warrants another look with additional instruction, intervention, remediation, and targeted instruction to meet their needs, and then you revisit the cycle all over again. But you do have, in some cases, some false positives that come out of screeners, so you have to be careful not to use it in its entirety as the only source of information. I did want to introduce you to something that was new to us, actually a couple of things on the next slide, and as well as the slide after this is for math. We introduced a couple of new tools this year. And again, I give our teachers and our students a lot of credit. It's an interesting time to be able to do some new things. But in this case, the universal screener for number sense is something we introduced at K&1. And this is interview based. So the nice thing about this is the teacher and the student actually sat down and had a conversation, and the student was asked some questions and was able to actually demonstrate using manipulatives and also their thinking, but they had a conversation. So besides the actual math part of it, it was actually a wonderful way to connect with the students and really have an opportunity just to have a conversation. So we had our math specialists at the elementary building were the individuals who primarily gave the assessment, but they have a tremendous amount of valuable information at their disposal. In fact, on one of our visits, Dr. Brown Hall and I had the opportunity to talk to a couple of the specialists at a particular building, and they could not say enough about the valuable information that they received from this interaction. And again, it is all used to benefit kids. And that's the most important part. But I know we enjoyed hearing about it. And so what's important to note here, and I just want to draw your attention to this, is these are end of year goals. So this screener is about 10 minutes long on average, gives you some information, but what it's doing is it's projecting out where students should be by the end of the year. So the areas of proficiency I listed here are the ones our students have already mastered, which is wonderful. You know, when you're at this point in time and the school year is not over, the ones at the bottom are ones we're still working on that by the time the end of year happens, those are to be mastered by that point in time. But I'm very pleased to see that this level of progress has been made. And again, there's always, with progress, there's also work to come. So we wanted to make sure that you knew about those two particular areas. And then with AimsWeb, this is the tool for grades 2 through 4. We piloted this year, and we're really looking at whether or not this will give us basically almost a companion. We use FastBridge for literacy. We did not have per se a universal screening tool as a lone tool. We have a lot of curriculum-based measures and things we do as part of the curriculum, but we wanted to really look at a tool for math. So that's what we're looking at. This is the pilot year for AimsWeb. And again, I can't say enough about our elementary principals and teachers and really taking this journey with us. Dr. Chris McGinley and Scott Piotrowski both actually worked closely with all of the teachers at all of our elementary schools. And these are the areas, again, these are end of year goals that AimsWeb projects out to. The areas of proficiency, as you can see, are numerous. And then we have some work that we're doing as our areas of focus as we're moving forward before the school year ends. But in this case, it's a whole class administration, and this is computer-based. So it's a very different way of assessing students. That's neither interview-based nor is it in writing. So this may also help us moving forward, because I know, the state, although it was not a primary focus as COVID unfolded, is computer-based testing, certainly comes up as a question. And that's something we have not done so in our school district at this time, but this gives us some information about how that looks. And last but not least, this is just a point of reference, and we're only including this so that our parents and community have it as part of the presentation. But our systems are really predicated on having a tiered model of response, first and foremost being the universal piece in the classroom. So the triangle is read actually from the bottom up. So all of your students are receiving tier 1, and then as you go up to the point of the triangle, it's getting more focused, because that is indicating that you are, through your screeners, through your assessments, through your formative tools, through your summative tools, that you're using all of that to ensure that you're targeting your intervention and supports along the way. So next month, I know that we will be sharing with you a lot of information about how we're expending our COVID funds and our grants, but we are also including the support structures that we're providing for students. And as a matter of fact, Dr. Brown Hall and I have been working on something that's both a companion to this and that presentation, which is a list of support structures that are available across our levels, elementary, middle, and high, those that are universal available to all students, and those that are targeted support at each level of instruction. We're going to post that to our site, and we're also going to have an explanation of what each of those supports is about. So with that, I will conclude and certainly take any questions or comments that you have.
Thank you, Dr.
Much,
Bell.
Dr.
Thank you.
Bale. I'll start on my right this time, and I'll work down the table. Okay. Dr. Singh and Dr. McCleary.
Just a quick question, which you may not have on hand, which is okay. But I'm just curious if you have an idea of about how many of the at-homers came in to do.
I can find that out for you. I don't have it at my disposal, but I can certainly
I'm just
tell. We
curious.
did offer it to all of our families. If you recall back last year, it was the first year we used WITS to reach out to families regarding participation, and that worked extremely well. But one of the nuances, because of our model last year, is we actually asked the families. The unfortunate part is they had to come in to test. So, but we can find that out and
Just
get that
curious.
for you. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a shot in the dark. I've asked this before, different districts, but I guess I'm still curious, and it baffles me. And we might not have an answer, and I know it's not the district's calling. Why do we give the state assessments in 3rd through 8th grade in the middle of March and April? It still baffles me. And even this quote, and I guess that's what made me think about it again. Our the value in student level data. On a classroom and student level, student state assessments are one tool that allows educators to better understand the needs of their students to provide individual supports. And, it goes on. That's the quote that was picked. And again, you're looking at data as a way to drive instruction, right? First of all, we don't get the assessment back until when? I mean, the scores don't come back till October, right? The following year, maybe August in a good year for all districts. I guess it's not a question, it's a comment. I wish we could advocate the state, and I know it's mostly probably pushed from down state, but why isn't it given at the end of the year and these kids an opportunity throughout the whole year to learn what and master the skills they need for that grade level, for that exam? And I guess it's just a complaint of mine.
May I?
The answers.
Huh?
Maybe you have an answer for that, but
And it's never the perfect answer,
No,
right?
yeah.
And I never want to be seen as if I'm trying to defend the entire system. But what it is, and we have to go back to the fact that it's a summative assessment. Remember, they used to offer it in January and February. We're like, this is completely useless. So they offer it usually in the spring because they needed the additional time to prepare the reports. And you remember a few years ago, they promised that the reports about how well students perform will be to school districts prior to the school year starting because it had to be included in the APPR. They plan on getting back to that because those results are supposed to move with the student so teachers can then individualize the instruction for the students. That's the ideal. Now, ideal and reality are always two different things, but that's what the state is working towards.
yeah, I understand it. That makes sense. I still just question.
As an educator, I know you do, but
yeah, I guess because from April to June, they could even grow more. So when you're looking at the data of what was happening in April, a teacher might be behind that. That makes sense. And the one thing I will say about Williamsville, which I think can set us apart, is, with my kids in these grade levels, I know that we're not just using the state exams.
Right.
So I will say that for parents to understand. I mean, these teachers are, running records and different things all year long. So I do want to applaud the teachers for that because it does help. Because like I said, a lot of growth can happen from April to
You're
June,
absolutely
where
right.
state exam won't show that. So I do believe throughout the year, and when students go to the next grade level in September, we have a better grasp than some districts. So
Yeah, thank you. I would concur with both comments made.
I'll continue down the table. Vice President Van Cise.
So I really just have a comment. Thank you very much for this presentation. I think it's very thorough. It's excellent to see.
Thank you.
So I appreciate all the time and the effort
Thank
with
you.
it. Because as educators, as parents, right, families, it is ingrained in us, not by our district, but by state level, that New York State assessments in the 3rd to 8th grade means everything, as well as Regents exams, right? We've been trained to think that way. COVID ended up hitting us, right? And we had to pause with all of that. And so from that, we have now been able to spotlight truly the other measures that we have in place for true assessment and achievement that our district previously was doing, but now what we've incorporated as well, which just quite frankly is a better assessment so that we can really have a good handle on our student growth and make sure that our learning, everything that we're doing is purposeful and meaningful. So I love this presentation.
Thank you.
I think it included all subgroups and it gives us as a board member a very clear picture. And I appreciate the work and I just, I'm applaud all the teachers, our staff, as well as our students that have day in and day out been part of this, have adjusted and had to continue to flip-flop. But the one thing we never lost focus on in this district, I truly believe this, is the learning piece.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. On my left, anybody? Dr. Lemon?
Always. Well, you guys have anything?
You're the only one that shook your head, so go ahead.
Well, again, I'll echo Vice President Van Cise on this one. Again, thank you. I keep looking at myself over there, and my head always looks like. You say you want to always make sure your head's on straight, but I can't figure out if my head's on straight or not. So maybe I shouldn't look at the camera. I guess the key thing is, again, thank you. I know how much time and effort it takes to put this together, especially with some of the available data is not there, and the value that this has to all of us to use this data. But I just want to make a comment on some data that may not be included, that might be included. And I'll just start off by, looking at AIM graduates. I know they're assigned to specific high schools, but they also have their own graduation ceremony. So I was trying to figure out where they might fit into that. Second, we typically, if you look at graduation rates, is shown by each of our 3 high schools, and that's not in this data. And maybe that would be somewhat beneficial because there are differential graduation rates over time. And the other part of that would be the non-completers. How much follow-up do we do of the students who don't graduate, and what happens to them, and what support are we providing as they leave the school. But I think your bottom line, is we've observed is we're looking at data at one point in time to assess where our students are. But I circled, because I still like that paper, the point that you make, and then what we are here for is we need this information to make decisions on resource allocation.
Yes.
And that's the key value that you've provided for us. So I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lippman. And I just want to thank all of you very much. Without your support and the resources, and really just the comments alone, just knowing that that support structure is there means a lot to me, our departments here, and certainly the teachers, staff, and administrators at the school. We're very, very fortunate in this district to have what we have. So thank you so much for all of your help and assistance along the way.
Thank you very much, Dr. Balin.
Thank you.
Mr. Biscaglia, do you have a
It
comment?
made me think of one other thing.
I'm back.
Kind of ties into like what other avenues of graduation. Have we ever looked at or had data on like vocational studies or kids that have gone that route, even though it might be a graduation rate, but in a vocational studies in the future, maybe we can see something on that.
Piece, I think.
We have it on here.
DDoS piece. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was on there.
And to Dr. Lippman's point too, if you click on the 2 links that are at the bottom of the slide with the graduation data, it takes you to the state website, which then can break it down by schools. So it is there. It's just, and I think we have done a good job of trying to de-emphasize comparing north to south, south to east to north, north. We're all one. We're all one, and we offer amazing programming at all 3 schools.
Yeah.
And it's not a competition. It's a support for all of our students to succeed. So thank you for everything that you've provided for us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Balin.
All right, board members, we are on item 18. So at this time, I'm asking for a motion to resolve to approve the funding for the negotiated agreement between the superintendent and the Williamsville Supervisors and Computer Technicians Association, which is 18A, and the negotiated agreement between the superintendent and the Williamsville Administrators Association in 18B as presented. Thank you, Mr. Biscaglia and Ms. Poulin. Is there any discussion on either of the funding agreements? Okay, thank you. And after, I just want to share that if this motion passes, the new contracts, when completed with the proper language, will be uploaded.
We can upload them right into
Yeah,
Board Docs.
absolutely. And the ones in there for right now are last year, or the most recent contracts, so that we could have comparison language for
Correct.
the funding. Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed or abstention? Seeing none, motion carries unanimously. All right, we are now on district facilities and support services. 19A, may I have a motion to approve the repair reserve bids as presented? Thank you, Dr. McCleary. May I please have a second? Mr. Biscaglia, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed or abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Elementary school air conditioning capital project. There's information in the board doc system regarding the presentation, and I want to thank Assistant Superintendent Mr. Matursky also for providing additional information in our weekly update that was received to the board. Are there any questions regarding the elementary air conditioning project at this time? All right, thank you. Item 19C, may I please have a motion to resolve to approve the amended SEQRA resolution as presented? Thank you, Dr. Lippman. May I please have a second? And Vice President Van Slyce, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. In 20A, may I have a motion to resolve to hold the annual district vote on May 17, 2022 from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. in the North High School Gymnasium, which is located at 1595 Hopkins Road in Williamsville, New York, 14221. Adopt the following resolutions to be submitted to the qualified voters at the annual district meeting and election as presented, and authorize the district clerk to publish public notices 4 times in the Amherst Bee and the Buffalo Business First. Thank you, Board Member Poulin. May I have a second? And Dr. McCleary, thank you. Is there any discussion on this? I would just like to thank our district clerk, Mrs. Len Carey, for the outstanding job that you have done over the past few years. Most of them all being through COVID, was very difficult, ever-changing guidance and guidelines and timelines, and our elections have been pulled off without a hitch. So thank you very much, and kudos to all of your work. With that, any other discussion? Dr. McCleary?
I'm sorry, this is kind of going back to as we were talking about the election. Is it determined or formalized that voting will only be in person? There will be no mail-in votes?
Absentee ballots.
I mean, absentee ballots, but those are always. But in other years, of course, we've had many, the last 2 years, there's been many, many more mail-in.
Do you want to answer that, Mrs. Carrier?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that question. All in favor, please. Any opposed or abstaining? Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 24, unless anybody wishes to discuss anything under 21 through 23. Ms. Kazmarek-Bogner.
I just wanted to bring up something briefly under Committee of the Whole, although I don't know that it fits there. But I know we had put a pause on the policy committees, and we had talked about making sure that we approved all the policies that we had worked on revising. And I know that there's also been planning involved in our retreat. But do we have a sense of when we are going to reconvene the policy committees?
Thank you for that question, because we actually talked about that during agenda planning, and I apologize on my part for not sharing that out. Did you want to share the answer to that?
Absolutely. So I'm in the process of reviewing the 4,000s to share with the board, and we will then figure out how that meeting will take place for the 4,000s, or who will be appointed on that committee, and then we will review them and what the recommendations are from staff. So we figure if we go through them first, have recommendations from staff, and then as a board, you can review, but then also have the recommendations from staff there also.
Great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And we asked about that during agenda planning, and the 4,000 level is administration. So for 4,000 through 8,000, since they're very specific and involve different levels of different areas of expertise, we agreed with Superintendent Brown Hall that we would go level by level. So the 4,000 is administration. And when we met for agenda planning, Vice President Van Slyce and I asked if he was ready to share those recommendations with us, and he indicated that he would like an additional month. So our hope is that we can come back in April and
Correct.
that our April board meeting designate a policy committee to meet between then and our May board meeting. And our May board meeting's towards the end of the month of May, so it gives us the time to do that.
Thank you. Thanks for the update.
Absolutely. And thank you for reminding me. All right. So
I just have a question.
oh yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to know if you have any update on the DEI committees.
Yes. So the DEI committees, myself, Dr. Balin, and Linda Rouet met to provide the guidance and develop the guidance for the schools. And so at the weekly update, I'll let parents know that once we get the committees established at the buildings, we'll be having the district-wide committee. We'll do it very similar to how we solicited parents to be on the strategic planning committee. They'll send a letter into the district offices. If we have more parents interested than we need, we will hold a lottery. If not, very similar to the strategic planning committee, every parent that wanted to be on strategic planning was allowed. And so we're going to do it that way. And that will happen in the month of April.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
I'm sorry. You know what? And I meant to include it in the community update, but I said I'll take care of it in the weekly update.
Okay. No, that'll be good because we did approve it. We approved our strategic plan. And so I
Correct.
think some parents are starting to wait for that invitation and would like to be invited to join their building level team.
And we wanted to, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but we wanted to make sure we provided the guidance for the building so we have a level of consistency, because that's what the board has requested, a level of consistency, and what the committees may look like. And some, depending on what committees the schools already have in place, they may utilize those already set committees to work on areas of the strategic plan and develop those action plans. So every school doesn't need to create new committees for it, but the DEI committee is one that they do. And so we want to provide that guidance to send out to the schools, talk to them at the level meetings or the K-12 principal meetings, so everyone has the same information.
Great. Thank you very much. Any other comments from the board regarding committee of the whole or correspondence?
Well, just as a follow-up to that, and it doesn't jump out in my mind, how large are those, like the strategic planning committee? How many people are typically on that committee?
And that's a good question. And the reason I remember very clearly is because we included that in the guidance for the schools also, because you don't want a committee that's so large that you get no work done because everyone doesn't get heard, right? So the ideal size of these committee at the school buildings are 10 to 15 people.
Sounds good.
And then, of course, President Leatherborough will decide what board members will be on the district-wide DEI committee also. I know many of
We're looking for
interest.
volunteers for sure. Okay, thank you, everybody. Any other questions or comments before we close out? All right, may I have a motion to adjourn into executive session, discuss current litigation and employment matters related to particular persons to finish up our executive session agenda. Thank you, Ms. Pullen. May I please have a second? Dr. Singh, thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. Motion carries unanimously, and we are now adjourning into executive session.
Yeah.